Good morning. Let's get started with our session. My name, well, I guess I can change my slide, huh? Come on. This is a bonus benefits on managing your classes, and my name is Jane Solis. I have, I am a senior documentation manager here at Learn on Demand Systems. I have Bill Spears here to help answer any questions you might put in the chat. This session is being recorded and no data is being collected or stored. In your Teams meeting, can you please mute yourselves and turn off your webcams? And then if you want to orally ask questions, if you can hold those till the end of the session, and Bill will be monitoring our chat to look for any questions you have there. So thank you. I'm going to turn off my webcam now. And let's take a look at what we're going to be doing today. Oh, how could I forget? Post and you could win. So if you can take a picture with or without you in it and post it on social media and tell people you're attending Launch Q3 and say something hopefully nice about it, and then tag Learn on Demand Systems. We're going to be going through those, and there'll be some winners who will get gift cards for that. So the agenda today, well, I don't know that I'm going over the roster in all its glory first. We're going to be looking at the roster in the class. We're going to be looking at keeping attendance and enrollments, how to share files in a class, how to find labs that are connected to a class. We'll look at certificates and materials, and a little bit on automated notifications, and then how to disable and assign class activities. Basically, we're going to be looking through all the pieces that you can use in a class and managing that class. So let's go out and see about those features. Let me change my screen. Yep, now I have to share the other one. It's helpful when you're paying attention. Okay, I'm talking to myself there to what I'm actually doing. Okay, so you'll notice at the top of every class, there's a bunch of different links. And these links actually change from before class to when a class is actually in session. You have a lot more choices there. So the links are dependent on when the class starts and if it has started yet or not. So I'm just going to kind of go through these links and talk about different things that you can do with them. So on a clone event, this allows you to actually take the class that you have, and it's going to duplicate everything in the class. It'll, with two exceptions. So it's going to pull in the course that you used. It's going to name it the same thing that you had. It's going to use the same time zone. It's going to use the same minimum and maximum students. I can scoot this over so you can see that over here as well. It's going to not have any session times added because this is a new class you're creating and you'll want it at different session times. But it will duplicate the delivery that's in the class. It will duplicate any instructors you had assigned to the class. The other thing that it will not duplicate is if you have an event training key assigned to the class, that's the old one, 0569 something, something, something. And the new one is 22CC. It's going to generate a new key for you when you clone that class. But everything else, other than the sessions, are going to be added in. So if you know that you're going to be doing pretty much the same instructor on the same course on a different date, you can go ahead and clone the class and use that as a fast tool in order to get your new class made. So class history is it shows all the actions that have been taken on your class and who did them and when they did it. So for my class history here, I can see that Manager Dane has been working on this class and making changes. I can't see all of the things that she did. So let me add some columns because there are a lot of columns that can be added. And I want to be able to see, for instance, I know that the surveys were changed. I know the class maximum and minimum were changed, if I can find them. Yeah, where is my class? Maximum and minimum. I am lost. Class. Should be minimum and max. Oh, there they are. Um, event training key I already got, added an instructor. So we want to see instructors down here. And virtual and physical classrooms, maybe. And I want, if I can find it. Oh, no, that's not showing it. I want virtual and physical. Anyway, we can start to see different things on here. So for instance, this first time into the class, I did not have an event training key. And you can see that the next time I went in and edited it, an event training key was added. You can also see that the instructor and the organization survey was removed. I've gone from one instructor to two instructors, and I can do a little looking glass thing here to see who those are. And or I had no instructors here, and then I had one classroom, and then I had two classrooms. So you can go in and take a look at the different changes that are made. You can add all of those fields. It makes you have to scroll across really far to get there. But you can see things like my minimum and maximum students were changed in my one of my times in editing. But you can tell who made the changes, when they were made, and go ahead and check your class history if you're thinking something isn't the way it should have been when you last edited it. We have we're going to look at the roster in a little bit. We have a pre-class checklist. And what this allows you to do is come in and make a confirmation call ahead of time to the students. You might have one of your admins or someone do that for you. And they can make sure that the user was able to get in and redeem a training key or log in and create their enrollment and be able to get to the class. You can check when you actually sent materials to them, if you're sending them courseware or a headset or something like that. And then also when they receive those materials. And you can see that each one of those entries is time and date stamped for you. You can also do this from the Find Enrollments page by adding the different items here as output options, and it allows you to interact with it there too and check it. So then you don't have to do it one class at a time. You can do a span of a time span ahead of time before class. You can print a sign-in sheet. These are all things you can do before class starts. And a sign-in sheet is only going to be printed if you actually have a physical classroom attached to the class. And that's because if they're not attending physically, we don't need them to sign in when they come into a room. So you can bring up a sign-in sheet. It allows you to print, if it's multiple meeting days, you can print one for each day. You can print them based on which rooms. And then you can choose which columns are going to show on there. And you might do like organization and let's just hit go. And when I do that, it's going to download that sheet for me in Word. Spikes, come over here. And at that point, I can make changes to it if I want to. Like I may want the layout to be landscape, so it's longer and gives them a little more signing space. And you can print those out. And it'll only put the students in that are actually assigned to the classroom. I had 4, I think, in the classrooms, and then 4 others that are attending virtually, so those virtual students don't show up. And let's go back. So sign-in sheets, enrollments. You can open up Find Enrollments. It will be from the class, and it will filter based on that class and show you your students. And you can work here in Find Enrollments as well as on the roster and mark people enrolled or not enrolled. And anytime you see that little pencil icon, you can edit things. Before class starts, you have the ability to change an enrolled student to um, another status. So I can cancel a student, and I can choose to hit save or canceled and change that enrollment. And I'm actually not, well, I did it. I think I use them for something else later. So just in case, I'm going to put them back to enrolled. And if a class is in session, so this is actually a class that is running right now. And if I go to Find Enrollments and I try to make changes to it, I can't mark someone who is enrolled to another status. I can mark someone who is requested to any other status, including enrolled, after a class has started. But we use this as one of our billing triggers. So um, it is, that's why we don't allow you to change someone from enrolled after a class starts. Once the class start time hits and the student is marked enrolled, that it's a billable item to us. If you do have issues where you have a student that no-showed, you can contact our support and they can go in and work with you on that, canceling that enrollment. We do ask that you let us know the first day of class or at least at the very beginning of the class so that we can take care of that and correct the billing. Let's see. Oh, I was going to tell you something else on the Find Enrollments page. We get questions about students I oversee, and I actually probably want this in here. What is the difference between students I oversee and classes I oversee? So if I go to students I oversee, these are based on my organization management and the students belonging to an organization I manage. And I have, I guess, 8 results here. If I go to classes I oversee, I actually get another person in here, and she is from a different organization and is enrolled to take the class. So I don't actually oversee this person, but I'm overseeing the class that she's also enrolled in. So if you do have outside organizations that attend into your classes, that's why you have a difference between students and classes you oversee. You can, in fact, create an enrollment right on the class page. And I can come out here and choose somebody. Aaron gets chosen all the time for some unknown reason. And you can change the enrollment status right on here to enrolled if you want. And if you have classrooms, and I have several classrooms attached to this, there are different ways that you can do this from the enrollment and also on the roster. So if I have a physical classroom that I know that my people are meeting in, I can assign that student to the classroom, and it will allow me to assign them up to the classroom capacity. So if I only have a room that seats 3 people and I try to seat a 4th person in there, even though the class has 20 seats open, it will not allow it because the physical space is not going to meet that capacity. Now, I also have a student that is perhaps attending in a remote classroom away from my actual center. And if I do that, I can choose the classroom to be virtual and remote. And then I get this nice little remote classroom option to add. So I'll go out here and I'll choose. And right now it's saying it's only going to show me the classrooms that are not external. And I can designate on a class whether it is internal, as in there at my organization, or if it is external, as in someplace that is not in my organization. And I actually do have one, and I would pick that. And at this point, it is settling that person in as a remote learner. This also aligns over to notifications so that you can differentiate a notification between someone who's in the actual center versus someone who's outside of the center. And then to indicate that someone's just not going to be in any of my public spaces. They are actually just attending virtually from work or from home. I would choose virtual and remote, and then I just don't put in a classroom here, and that will designate that student as virtual in the system, and that also aligns with a type of notification by enrollment status. So there's that. Files can be uploaded by administrators or instructors, and they can be available then to a student or the instructor in the class. So if I go to Manage Files right here, I can upload a file. If I'm an instructor, I can upload the file. When I upload a file, it'll tell me all the variety of file types I can upload. I go in, I choose that, and I can designate it whether it's only for the instructor or administrator to be able to access, or whether a student is also able to access it. And then a student will see that down below his class activities and he'll be able to open the class files there. But the instructor will only be able to get them to them from the Manage Files. So I'll show you that really quickly. Let's go with Jesse. See, I thought I used Jesse for something. And go to his current training. And I'm in the pre-class management. So if I come right down here over to his files, this course resource was a file that's uploaded directly on the course. The class files here are the files that he has access to that were uploaded directly on the class. Okay, let's go back. So, whoops, I don't want you. I want to look at my cheat sheet. Managing files, visibility, and completion certificates. I'm going to skip over monitoring labs until I'm in a class that's running and looking at lab instances as well. You can add completion certificates either at the course level or at the class level. If it's at the course level, you can designate by hitting advanced, show advanced settings, you can see the certificate section here. And if you have it set to inherit certificates from the course, the certificate that was found on the course will drop down automatically into the class. But you can actually remove that, and I think I only have one certificate out there. So, but you could add multiple certificates, as many as you wanted here, onto the class. And certificates can be printed ahead of time by clicking on that completion certificate link. And apparently there's another certificate out there somewhere. And I can click on OK. It's going to make a download for me. And because I'm a manager and also instructors have this as well, I get a Word file and a PDF file, and you can print those out for your students. The Word file is available there because sometimes you need to edit something like a username. If their username in their user profile is where it's pulling from isn't exactly what they wanted to show on the certificate, that's why we give you a Word file. All the other information is pulled from the course information, not from the class. And when students are marked complete in a class, and we'll see that on the roster, they have access then to print their enrollment certificate from their transcript. And anybody who has a course assignment and completes it can also print their certificate from the transcript. But they only get access to a PDF file, so they can't make any changes. It's going to be exactly as it is, and that is what they get. So, oh, I just did that. So those are certificates, completion certificates, and they can be printed before, during, or after class by an administrator or an instructor, and only by students if they complete the class. Notifications. We have a find sent notifications link there. I want to say trigger, and that's not what I want to say because, well, notifications have triggers. But if you're working with a class with a notification, and you have a notification set up, you have to enable the notifications for any classes, enrollments, for them to actually go out. You can actually also set a default on your organization. And if you go to your organization profile settings and go to preferences, you can set a lot of defaults in here on the preferences. And if I come down to class settings, I can have it enable class notifications by default on every new class that I create going forward. And so that way you don't have to remember to go out and go into those advanced settings and then enable a notification every time. So that can be done for you automatically. What are notifications really? Notifications are now available to you. Coming to a store near you are notifications. You now have access, it was just recently given, to create your own notification plans. We have quite a bit of documentation out there on how to do it, and even a video for you from a recent webinar. So you can go out and create your own notification plans, and you can have them trigger from multiple things like confirming a class enrollment, confirming an enrollment cancellation, reminders before class starts that, hey, you have class tomorrow. And you can designate who has triggered that notification to go, if it was you as an administrator or an end user, and who is actually going to receive those. And then you create your text information, and if I have something chosen, it'll actually show me replacement text for it. And you have a bunch of different options you can fill out. But that saves you from having to go in and email people specifically, and it will automatically do it for you. And that's why we have a link for find sent notifications. So I can actually go in here and verify that those notifications were sent. So I have this enrollment confirmation, and you can see that it is sent. And we do note that just because it was sent from the system does not mean it was received by the user or recipient. And you might want to come in and check. There's a couple of reasons within the system why it might not go out to the user. One is that any user can disable notifications on their user profile. They can opt out of it. Or they may have an incorrect email address in here, and you may want to check that. You can change it on their profile, and then you can trigger the notification again. If you just send again over here, it's still going to go to the same email address that is in here on the notification that was sent before. And you can view the details in the notification and see that all the information came across properly. So you have access to do things in there. Let's get back to our class. Notifications. Training keys. So we have two different types of training keys available for classes. And what a training key is it is a code that's generated, and it allows a student to you can send them the code and they can enroll themselves using that code. So if they do not have a user account yet, they can also create a user account when they register. And if I can get something open over here, let's go to Career Rocket. So you may need some setup in order to get this running on your site, but you can add this register with training key. Once a training key is input, it will take them into a registration page. Let's steal a training key here. And input it, and that allows them to create a registration for themselves. Yeah. And it has whatever required fields are there for registration. When I hit save, it's actually going to, I didn't remove him. Sorry, I'm laughing because I didn't remove that guy from before. Yeah. Once the registration is fulfilled, it will actually take you straight into the user straight into their enrollment. And if I am a user and I'm actually in my, oh, I'm not impersonating him anymore. I just confused myself mightily there. Go to Jesse. If I'm a user and I already have a user account, when I come in, I actually land on this current training page. And so they can log in with their username and password and then come here and redeem their training key. They don't have to create a new account. But training keys are a real convenience for people to not have to create accounts and not have to create enrollments, but just send a key out instead. So we do have two types of training keys available in classes. One is an individual training key, and when I click on here, I can go into generate keys, and I can choose as many keys can be generated as there are open seats in the class. I'm just going to put in 2. Then I can distribute these to people. I didn't want to click on it. I can distribute these to people and allow them to self-enroll and also self-register if it's necessary. So with the enrollment training keys that come from the top of the page, each key is unique and distributed to an individual for one use, and then it's one and done. We do also have an event training key, which can be used under advanced settings. And down here, you can enable your automatic enrollment by using an event training key. And this is one key that is open to everyone in the class to use and redeem. And it does have one downside to it. So I have 18 students as a maximum in my class. So it will allow, this is the only stop that is on the class in terms of how many people will redeem that key. So if I'm only expecting 6 people or 8 people in my class, and I still have it set to 18 or 25, and one of my students decides to pass that key out to 10 of his best friends, they can also use it to log in and redeem the key, have access to the labs, and cost you money. So you do want to be aware and keep your maximum students at the number that you know are to be in the class if you are using that event training key so that it doesn't get abused for you. So those are training keys. And let's move over to the actual in-session class. We're gonna make you a big person now. Class management. So we have some additional items that are added and some that I didn't go over from the pre-class. You can't enroll students, unenroll students once the class has started. The attendance chart is suddenly available here, and recordings are available if you're using a virtual classroom and are creating actual recordings. So let's take a quick look. We're coming to the roster in a minute. Enrollments, create enrollment. Monitor labs. Let's make sure my fake student lab is still running. And once a class is started and your instructor is in the class, and I'm not actually going to do this as an instructor because I don't feel like changing, but as an administrator, you can do this as well. You get an over-the-shoulder look at the labs virtually that your students are actively running. And I have one whole lab running over here. And if she actually makes any changes in the lab, and we'll see how well she can make a change over here as she's talking to you, you'll start to see, especially if you'll see the changes happening right there in the lab. So if you have multiple students, you're going to have tiles that come across and onto different rows. You can also go to different size tile views, which is really nice, and medium and also large. And so you can get a better view into each one. And you'd have the full class view here. I keep rolling my mouse around as if, hey, there's more over here. If only I could launch a lot of them all at once. And you can share files directly into the lab interface by setting up a ISO file and uploading it here to the to my my lab interface on the Monitor Labs. And I'm going to want to, and then the student will get a note, but I was already sharing it. They'll get a note that shows them that that the materials are open. Inside Monitoring Labs, I can open an individual in a new tab, and it will allow me to send a notification directly to that student. Hey, Laura, against capitalization, it's just a waste of time. And then the little note will pop up here. This is exactly where that shared file notification shows up when they first are shared. I can communicate directly with that student. I can actually talk to them and then take control of their lab by clicking on the take control button there and affirming that. And I could help someone through a rough patch that they're going through. And I can also, I know that my shared file turned up from resources in the DVD drive, and that is where that instructor Jane ISO file is, and they can actually open that and use it then right inside their lab interface. I can work inside their lab here and make changes and move around. That's empty, that doesn't help. Documents. And I can move around in there. And then I can go back and I can release control and give it back to the student once they've caught up to the right place. So Monitoring Labs is pretty nifty, and it gives you a lot of interaction, especially in our virtual world that we're now all living in. So I'm going to end that lab over there. Cancel. Okay, cancel. And let's get out of lab monitoring then. Oh, that was my new tab for that. And I want to be back in class management. So Monitoring Labs is a really cool feature for instructors. Finding lab instances will show you any of the Monitoring Labs shows you active labs that are taking place right now. Find lab instances gives you labs that any time that they were taken. And I can choose to be within the last week. I may have done something before that. Let's see. And it's filtered specifically for that class. And I think I also have, well, this class is in session, but you also have a filter for launched after class ended. So sometimes people are interested in knowing if students are still doing the labs. So you can have that, and it was launched during class or it was launched after class. So that's a helpful little filter right there. And let's go back to my class. Did I not? Really? Let's go back to my class then. Find the class. What's it called? Oh, I need an in session now. In session now. Okay, class management. I didn't know if it was manage class or class management. Okay, so find lab instances takes you into the lab instances for anything that's been taken. Exam instances actually is the same thing, but it's filtered out for only exam labs. And it shows things like, by default, it'll show things like, I have nobody who's ever taken one from this class. And it'll show things like whether they passed, what their score was, what the percentage was, and if it was a pass, and the passing score that was needed for it. So you can, and it automatically filters only to show labs that are exam labs. So that did not apply to my class. Recordings are when you are using a virtual classroom. And as a operations manager, I have an option to sit in as a student in a virtual class or sit in as an instructor and be one of the hosts. If I am the instructor, I would see, let's impersonate her real quick, and I will see a enter classroom button. Since that class time has already started and is running, my students also see the enter classroom button. And based on the session times and when they start, they'll see a countdown telling them when they can actually enter the classroom. So it's there for them. And if I have been made any recordings on the class or had any virtual sessions that have come through already, I can come back in, and as an instructor or a student, the student also gets the recordings link once they are available. And I can see when it was done, how long it is, and then I get my link over here to start watching that 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 video of the class. And if I stop impersonating and I'm in here as an operations manager, I can actually set availability outside of just the students enrolled in the class. I can say anybody in my organization can actually take a look at this. I can say anybody that is authenticated can, or anybody at all unauthenticated as well, can access this recording. I can then also, or rather than doing that by role, I can add users as just individuals that have access to it, or I could actually add users by role. Maybe I want all my instructors to be able to watch this virtual delivery and share it out to them. So if I am, in fact, added in here to be able to access the video, I don't have access to the class necessarily um, as a student. So where I get to that recording then is from the transcript, and way down here at the bottom I have recordings, and I can open that from here. So that's kind of fun. Let's go back. I want to go back to my class. Okay. Recordings. You can also, this is not giving me access, and it should be able to find the recording access times. So I'm gonna have to check in with that, why we don't have the permission set there. We talked about completion certificates, surveys. So once a survey is, if you have a survey added on the class, and like these completion certificates, you can add surveys directly on the course, and they'll be passed down to the class, or you can add them as default for every class by adding it on the organization profile and setting which surveys you want them to have. And in the organization profile, you can actually set the default hours before the class ends or after the event begins for when the student gets to view their survey, and how long it is from the end of class that they still have access to take that survey. If you have the survey set up on the organization, it will open, it will default to any new course created and also to any new class created, unless you have different surveys set at the course level. So then the course is closer to the class, so it is actually the item that it will pull the survey for. And What time did our class start? And then you can make any changes you want directly on the class for the survey and add or remove anything you want. Oh yeah, I have conflicts. So that's surveys. What time did we? And we talked about training keys. And discussions are also available. This is set on the course. If I am an instructor or an operations manager, I can come in from the class itself. If I am a student, I'll have a discussion link again on my enrollment. And you can set up, as a ops manager, you can set up discussions, and the discussions are triggered based on the course having a discussion added onto it. And then anybody who takes that course through a class enrollment or through a course assignment can then add to the discussions. And you set the topics. They can add the posts, and you can add moderators directly to a discussion in order for them to be able to make sure that the discussions are staying on point, or the correct answers are being given out, and they can remove posts that are inappropriate. Okay, close that window. And I literally do not remember what time this class started. The session did. That is very, very bad. I need to go and check that in just a second. Oh my goodness.
This current, okay. You got time, Jane.
Okay, I don't know why I'm freaking out about that.
Oh,
But I'm
you're
like,
good.
because I almost went over last time. So, and I have at least a half hour. Okay, started at 7:45. That's why it's not on the hour. It's freaking me out. Okay, so on we go. Post-class access, one of the things that changes is just that there's no sign-in sheet available because nobody's going to be coming in anymore. And but everything else remains the same as you're seeing right here on the class. Let's go into the roster because we love the roster. The roster, after a class starts, you get this completion status. And a completion status, it only shows for that one event. So after the class starts, it always comes up as unknown, that person. And you can say, hey, these people are actually attending the class by marking them attending. You can mark somebody as incomplete. Let's say maybe they started part of the class and they never didn't come for all of the days of the class. You can set someone as a no-show. Our billing, again, is determined by whether they're enrolled or not. So setting someone as a no-show is not going to cancel out that billing. You have to contact our support team and ask them to cancel somebody for you not to get billed for it. And if you have things like tests that go along with the class that they need to have completed, passed in order to complete, you can have them as failed or complete. So the completion status is where I was talking earlier about a student needs to be marked complete in order for them to be able to print their own completion certificate. So that is, if they are not marked complete, it stays in their current training and it doesn't move over to their transcript. And if they do have a transcript that's working, I'm going to impersonate Mr. Jesse. I just gave him a complete. He's actually in this training right now, so it probably isn't going to go over. Oh, Jane Andrews. Go over there to the transcript. It did. So you see he gives this little icon, and he can choose which certificate he wants because both of them are there. And then he only gets that PDF to print. He doesn't get a choice. It comes as it is. So that is the completion certificate on a student marked complete. We have some little icons here. So anybody who gets this blue recycle kind of thing is a retake. They've taken the course that the class is based on before. If someone has never ever attended a class at your organization before, they'll get a little green new icon over here to the side. And the instructor has a bunch of different things that they can, and items that we all can piddle around in. You can get directly to the student's transcript from here. You can get directly to their enrollment that we looked at earlier when we were talking about classrooms. An instructor can add notes to a student's enrollment. And I'll just say this is a note. So if there's things that are going on, the students can't see notes. Only instructors that are assigned to the class and administrators can actually see notes. So anything you say there is not going to be shown to the student themselves. And you can actually add instructor feedback if you've added those roles onto the instructor and the student. And this is feed. And they can, maybe you have students that are bringing back assignments, and the instructor can post as many feedback items as they want. And then they can come back and edit and delete if they need to. Badges are available. And you can set these up against achievements to automatically be added, or you can come in here and go to the little trophy and see if you have a badge that's available. I knew I didn't, and I just knew I didn't. And if you do, you can assign those badges directly into class. You need to contact us for it if you want badges to be set up, because we use them through Credly and can have them working for you. So I can go into the enrollment history of a student as an administrator and take a look at any changes that were made to their enrollment. And just like the class history, I have a plethora of columns that can be added, and I can look and see who made a change and who made it and when they did it and what was different between them. So rooms were added, they were removed from that enrollment. What do we have? Oh, we can look up other enrollments for the student. And as an instructor or an administrator, instructors cannot access a student's profile unless you've given them additional permissions. So right here on a roster, we allow them to come in and do things like change a username and change a password for the student so that they can assist them with logging in. So that's a little password icon over here. And everything that we've looked at up here, other than email students, we've already discussed. So email students allows an instructor who, again, can't get into the user profiles, but you can show the primary email here. We do have a bunch of different columns and that are showing you whether or not, like, the student has their labs enabled. By default, any class with labs is going to default to having all the labs enabled. The percentage complete here is based on any required activity, and if it has been completed, not if it is in process. So if you have 6 activities and only 4 of those activities in the activities are required, it's going to be based on whether any of the 4 required activities have been completed, not if they are in process. Progress. So that's what percentage complete. You can also see which training key was assigned here on the roster and assist students that way. And we have this email students. So this is a nice way to be able to talk to the entire class all at once, especially for an instructor. And you can choose the enrollment status. You can also choose the completion status. It'll put in who I'm logged in as. Right now, it's taking my primary email address, and I can put in a subject and communicate to the students directly and send that off to them based on who is enrolled and any completion status. So that's a nice little tool for instructors as well. Okay. we do have this really kind of fun thing if you are having physical classes. um, Back in the day when we had physical classes, you could go to your organization and you could do a student check-in. And student check-ins are based on the class um, that have actual are set to physical or physical and virtual. And you can see who the instructor is. So someone at a reception desk, maybe who's telling these students where they're going to go. If I actually had a classroom assigned, it would show me the classroom name, so I could tell them right there. I could check them in, and that marks up on the attendance chart. I can see what time the class begins and ends, and just get them marked in and directed in the right place. So that is a nice little student check-in thing if you ever have classes physically. Again, um, so we like that, but again, must be a physical class in some way. Materials. So we have this item called material management. And again, on show advanced settings, I have this materials list here that I can set up for my class. And in order to set up materials, you'll have to do 3 different pieces. One is input who the material vendor is, where you place that order, whether it's physical or digital, those kinds of things. And then you have to have um, then you'll have to input each type of material um, that you purchase, if it's digital courseware, if it's a set of books. Each one has to be added individually, and then it's added into a materials list, and that is one item or multiple items. And what this does is it helps you with ordering. So once I have this class set up and I want to find out what I need to order for the class, um, and I want to go to materials. There it is. So here's where I could create a material. I can create a material list. And when I go to find responsibilities, and over here is where I created the material vendor, which has to be before I create a material and then create a material list. If I go to find responsibilities, let's say I want to find things that I want to make sure that my um, materials are out there. If I marked people as having received their materials, I may not get any results. Mm-mm. No, we're taking off the retake. You might not want to send materials to the people that are retakes again. What is going on? I knew I should have checked this before class started. Do I have anybody in here? I had the, I added it pretty late. I'm muttering about things now. No results. Anyway, it should come up with, oh, I love it when I fail. It should come up with the user, who the material vendor is, what the materials, each material is that needs to be added for the student. And then it will tell you all the information you need to actually mail that material out to the student, so you can add things like the address and phone numbers here as well. And you can use that. I've instilled such confidence in using that. Another thing that we can do is dedicated class. So if you have a class that only a particular customer of yours is going to be, they're paying for it, everybody in their class belongs to them, you can come down here to the company and you can add that company in as the one that the class is dedicated to. And what this does is once that's added, only users from that company can be enrolled into the class. So if you have a bunch of people that share, that come in and enroll students, and you want to keep this just to one company, you can do this here and prevent them from enrolling students in your dedicated class somewhere else. So you have to create the company itself. And once that, and you can put an owner on it, like an account executive who manages that company. And then you can associate users to that company on their user profile. So when I pick on Jesse's student again, and I go into his email user account, you would align the company to that user, and then Jesse becomes one of the users that could be enrolled into that class because he belongs to that company. So you can use company management for departments in an organization and organize people that way as well. So that is dedicated classes. And we haven't talked about virtual meetings. In order to add a virtual meeting into a class, you're going to use in the delivery section, you can set a class as physical, virtual, or physical and virtual. And either virtual or physical and virtual will allow you to select a virtual meeting host. We have 2 integrated virtual meeting hosts that are full integrations with Adobe Connect or Zoom, and you can have multiple instances of your virtual meeting host integrated into the system and use either as you choose. A integrated virtual meeting host like Adobe or Zoom, the advantage of having it integrated, once you have that contract, you can give us some information. We can set up a virtual meeting host for you. And once that's in place, if I use Adobe Connect, once I create a class here in the TMS, it automatically goes over and creates the meeting for me in Adobe or in Zoom. And the other thing it allows you to do is when you have recordings of those virtual sessions, it will make them accessible directly from the class or the enrollment, and you don't have to like mail them out to people. If you're using our other option, and everybody has this option to use, which is custom virtual classroom, you're able to go over and set up the meeting in whatever meeting host you want to use. You know, WebEx, Google, whatever they are. And and then you'll be able to copy the URL once the meeting is created and paste it right in here. And by the end of the week, we're going to have some options here under custom virtual classroom when it's selected, where you can set what time and how much time before class an instructor is allowed to enter the virtual meeting, and how much time before class and a student is allowed to enter the virtual meeting. And also for the student and the instructor after the class session is over, if you still want them to have that enter classroom button available to them. So Friday morning, you can look for that, as long as our production push goes well. So those are virtual meetings. The last thing we're going to look at is managing class activities. So we have a newer feature in our classes, or that are set on the courses. So I have the ability to disable, as an instructor, I can come in, or an ops manager, I can come in and disable all my activities. And you see these little enabled check boxes over here. I can choose to enable them one at a time, or I can go back and toggle this so that all of them are re-enabled. And what this does is it gives the instructor the ability to prevent students from moving ahead, or from getting into activities that he or she does not want them in yet. For instance, you might have an assessment and you don't want them to be able to take that assessment until you're ready for them to take the assessment. And what this does is it if I'm a student and I'm impersonating that student, details, impersonate, current training, class management. As a student, what I see then is I can see all my activities, every single one of them, and where. Sometimes this thing needs refreshing. It's supposed to do this all on its own. This is class management. This is class management. Let's refresh you. Sometimes it holds on to my. Just happened to you. Very strange. Because I'm the student. That's why it looks very strange. Chain. Okay, so I did disable the sample colors assessment. I'm not crazy. And if I impersonate this Jesse guy, and I go to his current training, and I go to class management, and I scroll down. Oh, you know what? I bet. Some days, Jane, just some days. We have this other, I'm gonna disable the external link to the website and the document. We'll talk about viewing class activity access in just a second. I can't believe that I was that silly. There's a good reason why he can't see it. I have befuddled myself unnecessarily. Let's see. So now I need to, I am impersonating you. Okay. And let's go to your current train. Let's go back to class management. Oh, I cracked myself up. Okay, so once that has been disabled, they can see the activity, but it shows as grayed out and disabled by the instructor, and they do not have a launch button. So if an instructor doesn't want someone working ahead of them or doing something while they're demoing, they can disable the activities. It refreshes within 30 seconds, it really does. And but it still shows to the student. And if you go back in there to the class management, we also have a way to assign activities to users directly. So this is enabled on the course as well, and it is on the activity in the course. And you can choose to have a manual assignment to a user. And once that is set, you get this view activity access. If if you have no one set up to be able to see that activity, then nobody will, all your students will not see it. Your instructor can see all the activities and launch them at any time. But when you don't have anybody on the student list, none of the students can see it. So if I edit my my student access and I add students, I can choose who gets to see that. And these other two students will never get to see that activity on their list, and hit save. And now I can also let Jesse have this activity, and we can see that you can use the class, the disable activity along with the view access. So one is enabled and the other is disabled. LTI activity and sample colors assessment. Let's go and see how Jesse sees those now.
Hey, Jane.
Hmm?
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. We're about 5 minutes over time.
Oh my gosh. See, I knew I would lose track of time. I'm so
No worries.
bad. Worried about it like 15 minutes in, but no, not when I've actually gone over. Thank you for stopping me. And just so you can see it, here is the last two assignments he can actually see now. One is disabled and one is available for him. I am so sorry, people. I totally knew I would do that. I forgot to start my stopwatch so I could see when everything was happening. Sigh. I told these people I can talk forever on any subject pretty much in the TMS. So as you see, that is possible. So let me get through to the end of our stuff. And we do have more resources on that topic and managing classes. If you go to the use a help link on any page in the TMS, you can go to the administrator tab and find the classes category and go in there. Or you can get there directly from lods.one/managing classes. We'd appreciate it if you'll fill out the survey that's available in your enrollment where you first entered the virtual classroom, and let us know what you thought about the session. Like, she talks too much and it went too long. And if you have a feature request, you can go to lods.one/feedback and request a feature. And again, hey, take a picture of yourself and post it on social media. Oh my goodness. Any questions and answers that we need to do?